Hey, Schlep here, back on trail for day number 5. I just climbed out of Woody Gap and up Blood Mountain. Throughout the morning, the fog and the rain cleared and the sun came out, so it's shaping up to be a really nice day. My goal is to make it through to at least Neal's Gap, a famous spot where thru hikers tend to give up at times and throw their shoes into the tree or get to swap out their gear, send some stuff home at the outfitter that you walk directly through on the trail. You can get lunch and resupply as well as stay over if you like. I can either stay there, which would be kind of a short day at 11 miles after taking 0 yesterday, or press on. There's about a 5-mile stretch after that where you cannot stay overnight unless you have a hard shell bear canister for your food, given how many close encounters there's been over the years. I do not. I'm using an Osprey stuff sack to either put in the bear box or hang in the tree. So if I don't stop at Neal's Gap, my goal would be Wet Leash Shelter, which is about an 18-mile day. So we'll see how it goes. Just made it to the top of Blood Mountain, about 4,500 feet of elevation, and I'm catching my first good view that's not full of fog. The shelter up here is really beautiful as well. It's a stone structure with a couple of rooms. Looks nice and toasty inside, but I won't be staying here tonight. We are off to Neal's Gap. Made it to Neal's Gap and am now seeing all of the crazy amounts of shoes in the tree. It actually is pretty hilarious. I wonder what the mix is of shoes that just didn't fit and hikers that actually quit at this point. The hostel at Neal's Gap shut down. However, they do still have a full service resupply and outfitter, which is awesome to be able to hit within your first week and swap out anything that you need or grab new gear that you realize you need and don't already have. I made it 15 miles today. I'm going to camp at Baggs Creek Gap. Initially, I thought I might go off to the Whiteley Shelter. However, I found out it was 1.2 miles off trail, which means round trip, you're adding 2.4 miles to your 2,200 miles, which just seems ridiculous. So camping here it is. The rain is drizzling a bit, but should let up quickly. It will get below freezing tonight, which means my water bottle, batteries, water filter, etc. need to be in the sleeping bag with me so that nothing freezes overnight and so that the battery juice doesn't deplete too quickly. I am looking forward to this stint of rain being over. The next 4 days are meant to be sunny and beautiful, so I can't wait to get up and hike tomorrow. Ooh, did it get cold last night. I ended up wearing everything I had with me, including my hat and gloves and rain clothes, just to stay warm. Woke up a couple of times, kind of had to shake it out. Going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, also rough. It was very exciting to get back in my sleeping bag and warm up. This morning, also tough to get up, although now that I'm up and moving, I feel really good. Planning on doing anywhere from 8 to 15 miles today. That's the next 2 shelters, so we'll see how today goes after the big miles yesterday. The trail actually has some ice on it that froze over last night, so some of the hiking is a bit slower. Not sure we'll pace well net out today, but we'll see. A few times now I've looked across and thought, man, I'm glad I'm not hiking that mountain. And then I look at the guidebook and realize, oh, yeah, I will be hiking that mountain. I just stopped here at Low Creek Gap for lunch. Really beautiful shelter with this stream running right next to it. Has a privy. I would love to stop and stay here, but it is way too early in the day. I'm going to press on another 8 miles or so to the next shelter. Since we're in the bubble still with quite a few people starting all at once at the same time and not many people have dropped out yet comparatively, since in the end about 80% do, shelters tend to fill up by like 2 o'clock. So I assume by the time I get to Blue Mountain there won't be any space, so I'll be in a tent, but at least the shelter and amenities will be there for a nice night of camping. I made it to the shelter last night and there was space inside, but only because it was recommended not to stay in it since we were on top of a peak and it faced the wind. It's actually more warm to be in your tent. So tent camped, figured we'd wake up to the warm weather that was promised, but ultimately it poured all night, so we woke up wet and cold again. For every 1,000 feet of elevation you are from wherever the weather read is in the closest town, you're supposed to subtract another 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit to figure out how cold it will be at elevation. However, now I'm learning that you also need to factor in additional rain. I'm literally in a cloud right now, so it's pretty wet. Planning to hike on, probably dry stuff out at lunch and make something hot to warm up. I'm about 20 miles from my next resupply, which will be Monday night, so I have 2 days to get there. After doing 30 miles in 2 days, I'm ready for a bit of a slower day, so just going to play it by ear and see where I end up. There's a lot of slippery, wet rocks and mud today. Got climbs up 2 different mountains and into their gaps before getting to the first shelter. Now that I've been on trail for a few days and have gotten into a bit of a routine, I'm going to begin rolling a theme into each of the videos to share with you guys what I've learned. So if you have any curiosities or questions, feel free to throw them in the comments and I'll get to them along the way. And if any backpackers are watching that have more experience, would love to hear your tips and tricks in the comments as well for whatever the topic is. I would like to caveat that every backpacker does things a little bit differently, and the best choice of a piece of gear, routine, whatever it is the one that works best for you. So I'm going to share what my experiences or the ways that I do things are. However, you should always be putting in the research and testing things out before you go into the woods to make sure whatever I'm sharing might work for you too, or you can tweak it in your own way. This week, I'm going to start with water. It's been on my mind from all of the rain, and here we go. Being on the Appalachian Mountains is tough in terms of how much water there is that rains on you and gets you and your gear soaking wet. A lot of extra effort to put in to keep things clean and dry. Dealing with slippery and wet, muddy conditions on the trail is rough. But a positive to how much rain there is the amount of very fast moving streams means tons of places to find and filter your water that you use to drink and cook or take off into the woods if you're going to use it to clean yourself or your gear. So on some trails where it's not as wet, when you're going through the desert, for example, on the PCT, you have to carry a lot of water since there's big distances between where you can get more. On the AT, you only have to carry about 2 liters. So I have 2 1-liter smart water bottles, and when I pass a stream and I'm running low, I will take out my bladder and filter it with my Sawyer squeeze. So this Sawyer squeeze sits on top of the bladder itself. You twist it on, and when you open it, the clean water starts to flow through. So you can put it right into your water bottle, whatever you're using to drink out of, and you have fresh, clean water in your bottle to drink as you go. I use the AWOL guidebook, and along the right-hand side, you'll see the little water droplets, and it tells you where you're going to see a stream. When they're totally filled in, that means it's a heavy flow. You can assume there's going to be water there, but where the drop is not fully filled in, you can assume that there might not be water or it's a slower flow. So I might stop at the source before that shelter and collect water for the night. I had a slow morning, just made it to Tray Mountain Shelter for lunch, about 8 miles, and it's already after 2 o'clock. I did stop and see my first trail magic, where people set up on the side of the road with different food, coffee, snacks, just for hikers for free to support the effort, which is awesome. So shaking up my lunch today and have a fresh banana, which is awesome. If you come across a water source that looks like this, it is more of a running puddle than a stream. If there's no water sources coming up and you really need water, it's okay to drink from it. However, you should filter it twice just to be safe. So you can put it once through whatever your normal water filter system is, and then use a backup. So typically people will run it through water like the Platypus or the Sawyer Squeeze, and then you can do a second round by using I use iodine tablets. I've also heard of people using chlorine tablets, lots of options based on what kind of taste or smell you can put up with. 1 week down. I am 73 miles in Everything hurts and is pretty gross and wet, but against those odds, I actually feel great. I've loved this week. I've met a ton of cool people. The hiking has been hard, but I've enjoyed it. I'm starting to feel like my trail legs are starting to kick in, and the miles are getting a little bit easier. I would say my biggest complaints, or the thing I've struggled with the most, is really just the weather. When it's a combination of both cold and wet and you're keeping things dry enough to keep you alive at night is tough. So that is only up from here, I suppose. The rain seems to continue throughout the trail, but it will get warmer. Even hot walking through the summer in Pennsylvania especially is known to be brutal. So by that point, I bet I will be missing the colder weather here at the start. So I had a realization this morning that I'm actually going to make it to Maine. I wasn't sure, but now that I've gotten through this week, I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So 73 miles down and over 2,100 to go. I stayed at Ada's campground last night and woke up to a really beautiful sunny day. It's not that cold. It's amazing how much easier it is to get up and ready when it's nice out. So only a 6-mile day today, hiking to Dix Creek Gap, going to stay at the hostel around the bend tonight to clean out my gear, get a good night's sleep in a bed, and resupply my food. I'm on a Blue Blaze trail heading 0.2 miles in off of the AT to get to the next water source. The next one that's right off the trail is about 4 miles and I'm out of water, so best to stop. This particular water source literally has a pipe coming out of it that makes it super easy to direct the water right into the bladder. Casual 1,000 feet of elevation in the first mile of the day complete, thank God. I have to cheers to being on top of Kelly Knob. Coming up into the Around the Bend hostel. Kind of crazy to see that we're only 9 miles from the border in North Carolina already. Hostel Around the Bend has been great. The second we walked in, we were able to throw our clothes in the laundry and take a shower, and then there was a free shuttle to get us into town to resupply. Now we're back hanging out, cooking, prepping our bags for the next day. Tons of games and hangout space. Would definitely recommend this hostel. Feeling fresh after a good night's sleep and shower at the hostel, and I'm gonna head up to Plum Orchard Gap for lunch. Walking on these ridges is so beautiful. I'm switching up the lunch program the next couple of days. I got some hard cheese in town and some summer sausage. Get a little protein that isn't from peanut butter. It's still at the point where it's cold enough that it could keep. Some people say for a full week. I got enough for 4 days, and we'll see how it goes. I was hoping for some mustard packets in town, but ultimately I ended up with some Taco Bell mild sauce to add to this bad boy. So keeping it classy, adding a little sauce and spice to lunch. This will be my last meal in Georgia. I'm just a couple of miles away from being in North Carolina. I'm taking my last few steps in Georgia before I roll into North Carolina. Woo! 1 state down, 13 to go. Hello, North Carolina. I thought climbing into North Carolina would include some like southern hospitality, some nice flowers and green trees. It was not like that. It was like an immediate upward steep climb. At points I was literally wishing for a rope to like hoist myself up. So it was tough. Ended up making it to Muskrat Creek Shelter. Met a lot of cool people there. It was a fun night hanging out. I slept inside of the shelter, which was nice to avoid the rain and be a little warmer. However, somebody warned us that he snored before we went to sleep. And I thought, not a big deal. I'm exhausted. That climb was tough. I'll sleep anyway. He redefined snoring for me. It's like a Mack truck ramming into a cement wall, just like over and over and over again. So didn't sleep much, but got up early, hit the road around 8 a.m. and I'm going to shoot for 12 or 13 miles today to get to the second to next shelter. It's meant to rain all day, so hopefully I'll get there early in the afternoon to dry some stuff out and hang out. This is the gist of the trail today. Pretty foggy, ominous. Rain's on and off, but even when it's not raining, the water coming down from the trees gets you wet enough that it's worth wearing a raincoat. So this is what we're working with. I'm taking a break from the rain at Standing Indian Shelter for some stretching and some lunch. This morning's 5 miles was significantly more calm than yesterday coming into North Carolina. Mostly just walking along the ridge, so some ups and downs, but nothing major. So it was pretty quick. I clocked 5 miles in a little less than 2 hours. I was wearing a hat with a brim, which makes it kind of hard to see, and I was looking down because the rocks are slippery and muddy, and I rammed my face directly into a falling tree. So that resulted in a nice nosebleed. Nothing yet, it doesn't look like, but I'm waiting to see if my face ends up bruising. The tree wasn't hurt, but then again, it was already dead since it was fallen, so I basically ran into a parked car. But making good progress today, so gonna have some snacks and carry on. The trail is so flooded after last night's storm. Kind of fun, I suppose, to be hopping rocks over things that aren't even meant to be streams. Even those small streams that are marked as like low water or depleted in the guidebook on these rain days are flowing pretty quickly, which is nice. A liter of water is 2 pounds, so when there's tons of water like this on the trail, you really only have to carry one, so you're taking some weight off your back. Had a bit of a hands and knees climb for the past few hundred feet up this slippery rock. It's kind of fun, a little nerve-wracking, just given how slick it is, but shaking up the walk a bit. This water source is adorable. A little leaf situation pouring off from the side of the mountain. Looks almost completely clear. Still gonna filter it though, not worth the risk. There's a lot of these little paths that go right off the trail that usually lead to some kind of vista or some kind of view. Let's see what we get here. Ooh, fog on fog. I wonder what this would look like if it wasn't such a foggy day. We're at about 5,000 feet of elevation, so I bet it would be beautiful. Good morning, day 11. The sun is shining, which is a new concept after the past few days of rain. Yesterday was cut a bit short after a quick 8 miles. I was on top of a mountain leading into Long Branch Shelter, and a thunder and lightning storm started, which was a little terrifying. So I picked up my pace and stopped at Long Branch Shelter for the night. It's a new shelter. I think it was built in 2012, so super nice, spacious, comfortable, warm, no leaks. So fun night hanging with friends, drying stuff out. Now I need to average about 12 or 13 miles a day to get me to Knock on Sunday for a resupply. Today it's sunny and bright, which is great, so I might knock out a few extra. More rain in the forecast the next couple days, so the party isn't over just yet. Really appreciating the sunshine today, knowing it won't last into tomorrow. Here I am again, collecting water. It's a chore I do about twice a day. Pretty cool water source. Waterfall coming from the north and to the south that streams through this pipe and gushes out the other side. Typically the last time I get water for the day, I'll also fill the bladder back up and bring it to camp with me, just to have some extra water to cook, fill water bottles up again in the morning for a first go, or just share with people at camp. Inevitably, someone shows up exhausted and doesn't want to head to the water source. Another water chore is cleaning your filter. So you put dirty water in one end and clean water comes out the other end, and while you're doing that, inside of the filter some muck builds up. The Sawyer Squeeze comes with a syringe that you can back flush through. However, it's really just dead weight. If you are using smart water bottles, which most people do who use the Sawyer since it can squeeze on top of it, you can actually use the sports top and plug it into the clean nozzle of your filter and squeeze it through. It's not clean. It doesn't perfectly fit, but it's enough that when you start squeezing it through, water does come out of the back end, so you're seeing the kind of mucky stuff come out of the filter, like so. So you gotta do that every couple days. Hey crew, I made it to Siler Bald to camp at the shelter tonight. The plan is to chew through camp chores relatively quickly and head up to the top of the Bald to watch sunset. It is supposed to be one of the most beautiful points on the AT. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. You can subscribe for weekly updates. Next week we'll focus on shelters and where people sleep on the AT, as well as my first venture into the Smoky Mountains portion of the trail. See you then.